welcome to Procurement Pivots, the podcast for procurement professionals wanting to navigate change successfully and create career success on your own terms. I'm Donna Bowden, procurement career coach and founder of Narrate Your Career.
And I'm Laura Sellers, executive coach for procurement and founder of Coaching for Procurement. And between us, we bring almost 25 years of supporting and working with procurement professionals. And it's fair to say we've navigated many of our own career pivots along the way. And now we're here to help you do the same.
Each episode will share practical strategies, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you confidently tackle the changes and challenges in your procurement career.
Let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Procurement Pivots podcast. And I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Donna Bowden. Hey, Donna.
Hello, thank you for that lovely introduction. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And before we jump into today's episode, we just want to remind you, and we will give you more details at the end of the episode, but we have a very special invitation for you as we are reaching our 1-year anniversary of the Procurement Pivots podcast. We have a really exciting webinar to share with you, and the invitation and all the details will be at the end of the episode. So please make sure you join us for that. We are delighted to share some really exciting stuff with you on that call. But today's episode is all about being an introvert in procurement. And, you know, we're not afraid to broach emotive subjects on this podcast, are we, Donna?
No, we love it.
We do. Yeah, and I think, you know, it's certainly something that comes up a lot, that there are many procurement professionals in senior positions as well as in other parts of the team who identify as being introverts, and they may feel that that holds them back in making the progress that they want to make in their careers. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, it comes up a lot, actually, maybe more than I'd anticipated. So it didn't necessarily come up that frequently, I would say, when I was recruiting, when I was working with people, but certainly since kind of stepping into the coaching space, like, yeah, I feel it does come up quite regularly, like I mean, I don't know percentages at all, but I'd say, you know, a fairly significant percentage of people that I talk to actually, yeah, they certainly identify, you know, and have sort of introverted kind of preferences, I would say. So yeah, I think it's a really important topic, particularly because of what procurement is being asked to do as well.
Indeed. And actually, I do have an interesting stat to share on this. So based on the work that I do in insights and on past experience of that over the last, just work it out, over the last 6 or 7 years, around 70% of procurement professionals do have introverted preferences as their dominant energy. So again, that's just based on the work that I do. It's not an official stat out there, but it is incredibly more swung in an introverted preference. Now, before we delve into it, I also think it's really important to maybe just do a bit of myth busting around what being an introvert is.
Yeah, I think that's really important, actually. I'm glad you've mentioned that because, look, I didn't know that stat. So that's a really interesting stat. I think some people, like, when they talk about it, it almost feels like there is this kind of stigma associated with it, I would say. And actually, you know, there are some real strengths and positives as well. And, you know, many introverts, like, you know, they'll do particular things much better sometimes than an extrovert. But I do think, yeah, just sometimes it almost feels like, whether it's perception or connotation of, you know, some people do think like being introverted is less successful than being extroverted. You know, we do hear, I think, like particularly in procurement, I mean, I've certainly had it, you know, clients have said they're getting pressure to be more visible. They're getting pressure to just be more confident in the meeting, you know, just influence the stakeholders. Like, actually, some of these things, it's like kind of, you know, off the cuff comments, not helpful a lot of the time. But yeah, I also wanted us to kind of acknowledge that, that is this, I think some people feel that we're referencing things like ability or capability or confidence, and that isn't what we're talking about when we talk about kind of having those introverted preferences.
Yeah, it really resonates what you've said there. I think there are lots of myths around being an introvert. I mean, let's just say, from what I would share in terms of the headlines, from what I see about introversion, is that it's not a rigid box ticking. You're not one or the other. I did a poll on LinkedIn not long ago, and some people would say they're a bit of both. And that's true for all of us, really. We all have introverted and extroverted preferences. We just tend to lean more one way than the other a lot of the time, unless you're a weirdo like me who actually has both as their dominant energy. So well, according to my profile anyway. But what I would say is that it's not about being shy. Some introverts will be shy, but not every introvert. You have some introverts who are happy to talk on a stage, believe it or not. You've got other introverts who are happy to build relationships. It's not about, I think sometimes if we were to look at it on the surface, like an extroverted person is a person who likes to be the center of attention, who, when I say center of attention, what I mean is just like to be able to be vocal in a meeting, to be the one who's leading the meeting, to be one who likes to be at huge group gatherings, Whereas introverts, actually, I know some amazing procurement leaders who are very introverted, and they can command a room well by the way that they hold themselves within a meeting. So yeah, I think certainly in terms of myth busting, don't put yourself in one box. And that actually it's around using your preferred energy in a way that works.
And I think that energy word, that's key, isn't it? Like that's the bit I think that sometimes gets missed when people are talking about these topics. I think it's like, what environments bring out the best in you, what environments give you energy, and what environments are like a kind of either draining you or shrinking you in a way. And so I think it's like I think that bit gets missed when people are like, oh, that person's really they're really introverted. Often they're talking about like, the volume, are they loud? Are they speaking up? Are they quiet? But actually, it's much more than that.
Absolutely. It is all about energy, and it's how you recharge. It's about how you manage that energy. So do you think that maybe what we should do to sort of bring this to life a bit more is to look at a particular scenario, like a meeting with lots of important stakeholders?
I think stakeholders, leadership, like I think, there's some of the scenarios, aren't they, that many people can find quite uncomfortable and challenging to navigate. So I think, that would be a really good scenario, I think, to look at.
Yeah, and just calling back on what you said earlier on, is that a lot of people that I speak with, if they're being given feedback about how they need to progress, there is sometimes that thing about be more visible, or you need to speak up in meetings more. You need to, you need to be more vocal. So, the feedback is there. And I don't disagree entirely that to be more impactful, you need to tweak the way that you're visible. It's just around doing it in the way. So let's take a look at meetings then. How would you, if we took a look at before a meeting, where's that relevant for an introvert?
So in terms of like, do you mean before as in things you could do before the meeting? Is that what you're kind of, I think, I mean, actually, I love breaking down the kind of the before, the during, the after. I think that can be really helpful for people. And I think, definitely, I think there's quite a bit that you can do beforehand. So actually, by nature, a lot of more introverted people, I think, they're really considerate with their communication and their language choice, and they like to think about what they're saying before they say it. And so I guess part of the preparation when you know you're stepping into one of these kind of, these big meetings, which can be really uncomfortable for some people, can't they? Like some people can find that very, very difficult to navigate, particularly if they're in that room with lots of very dominant characters and big voices and very strong opinions. So I think just, thinking about what is it I have to share and what is it I want to share, and actually kind of preparing, like, how do I want to show up, how do I want to contribute? Like, I think just giving it some thought, like, actually, as someone who probably is more thoughtful and considered in your approach, giving yourself space and time before that meeting to think about, okay, how am I going to, like, how am I going to approach this? So I think that's one thing, and we've spoken about this quite a lot, intentionality. It's like rather than just rocking up to the meeting, which some people do, and some people, like, that is how they operate, and they're absolutely fine to just wing it. But I think actually, as an introverted person, you do want to be more, considerate and thoughtful, and so I think it's just giving yourself the space to think about, how am I going to approach that meeting, and how do I want my voice to still be heard in a way that feels genuine to who I am.
Well, there's such great points, and like you say, some people are able to wing turning up to a meeting not prepared,
Yeah,
but for maybe some people who identify as introverts as well, they get filled with dread before a big meeting, knowing that
yeah,
there's going to be some powerful stakeholders or leadership in that
yeah,
room. So I love what you're saying there about the preparing, because we don't want to be too rigid in the preparation that we're not able to think outside of that. There's just
yeah,
maybe some frameworks of conversation that are really important to you to either get across or to
yeah,
learn about or to ask questions for. What I also like the idea of is the who do I need to speak to before we go into that actual
totally,
meeting.
totally,
Like,
yeah,
now something about introverted preferences is that they are able to build great relationships, and a lot of the time they do it in really great depth.
yeah,
So and they can be fantastic at I say I've got high introverted
yeah,
energy. I love
yeah,
to build deep relationships. I
yeah,
wouldn't be a coach, but I think it's there to be able to prepare, thinking, who do I need to speak to about that meeting, either about my idea that I'd like to share,
yeah,
or
yeah,
understanding their point of view, so I can
yeah.
go in thinking a bit or feeling a bit more prepared about what's going to come up.
Yeah, I love what you say there about, like, the idea, because I think, again, like, if you have had the start of a conversation with someone, again, sometimes it can feel a bit more comfortable in that environment to say, actually, that's really interesting. I was talking to you over there the other day. We were having a conversation, and that may be more comfortable for someone to share, rather than just saying me, this is my thought, this is my idea. So yeah, I think, yeah, that kind of pre-work can make a really massive difference, can't it? Bit like, we've spoken about this when it comes to networking as well, but just knowing that there are some kind of friendly faces in that room as well can also help. And, to know that you've already started the relationship building activity with some of those individuals. So you're not putting yourself under pressure to arrive at this meeting and have to, like, almost give a first impression to everyone in the room at that moment in time. They've
Yeah,
already, they've already had the first impression.
yeah, I love that. And even just turning up a few minutes before, to
Yeah,
sort of like settle yourself in is also a really good one. So that's
yeah.
brilliant. That's brilliant. That's more on like the before then. What about during the meeting? So you've done some preparation. You've maybe had a couple of pre-meets or pre-conversations with people. Somebody might even call on you in that meeting, like
Yeah.
you mentioned. Um, what would you suggest in terms of how you handle that introverted energy in a meeting?
I think, like, it's going to vary for every person. Like we said, like, I don't think it's like one size fits all, but I think questions, questions can questions can be really powerful, to like show your, I suppose, your leadership, to show your, your kind of, I guess ability to influence the direction or the room. Or, I think sometimes for some people, like, asking questions of others is not as pressured in the moment as having to answer the questions themselves in the moment. I think for some people, like some meetings, like as you said, like, particularly senior meetings, you've got some really dominant characters, some very opinionated characters. Often the conversation's really pacey as well. You're like going from one question to another, and it's like you don't have the time to really stop and think and answer. For a lot of kind of introverts, like they want to have that time to think about their answer before they say it, in order to feel comfortable that what they're saying is what they think, if that makes sense. I don't know if that worded that very well, but so I think, sometimes asking really pertinent questions of others, like actually that can be very insightful, very, very insightful. And it's like showing I know the right questions to ask, and that in itself can help to, help to kind of steer the conversation. So I think questions can be really good. Observations as well can be really,
Mm-hmm.
really good. Almost like pulling together what others have said and the opinions that they've shared. It's like almost like, just kind of, observing like what I'm hearing from what everyone's saying here is, and it's like just adding I guess a contribution, but your observations of what's going on in the room, as opposed to necessarily bringing a new idea to the table.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the way I like to describe it is like having a bit of a question bank, or like
Mm,
a couple of skills that you want to intentionally use. Because something that I definitely hear from some clients is around this thing about being vocal, or, needing to speak up more in a meeting. Sometimes the pressure comes in because they feel like they then need to have all of the answers. And as
yeah,
procurement's remit expands and they're spinning more plates, it's like, I need to learn about AI, I need to learn about this, I need to learn
yeah,
about that. Whereas actually, that you can be visible and vocal without being the person with all the answers, using the exact skill sets that you've talked about, the great questions
mm,
and the observation techniques, which actually are all great coaching skills that we cover in
yeah,
my coaching qualifications. So I think we would really do well to have that list of questions. And exactly like what you're saying, what I'm hearing is you could be the dot connector between all of
yeah,
those strong voices that are in that meeting. And you know something, given that procurement is all about being a really great business partner and to be able to add value, your stakeholders want to feel heard and valued and
yeah,
understood just as much as procurement wants to. So for you
yeah,
to be able to walk into that room, being an introvert with that energy of building deep relationships,
mm,
surprised at how powerful that is to be able to do what we're suggesting here, to ask
yeah,
questions and to connect the dots and make observations.
yeah. I think that's such a good point actually about the stakeholders, and like acknowledging what they've said as well,
Mm-hmm.
and showing empathy as well,
Yeah.
for what's been said in that room. I love that. Yeah, so I think it I guess it can, I know it can be very, very difficult. I've been in that scenario myself. Like I definitely have, I have a lot of introverted tendencies, but also extrovert as well. And I'm very different in different scenarios, but I've definitely found myself throughout my career at different points in some of those really big meetings. I think particularly, when you feel like you're stepping in, and maybe you're one of the less senior leaders in the room, or like when you've stepped into, like I've definitely experienced it, new business or new part of the business, and suddenly it's like, the reporting line, it's like, you're in there, you're on the board, you're reporting into the, it's like it's it can be really quite daunting. So I can kind of empathize with that, but I think also it's like just allowing yourself to I suppose, to contribute without it being a really perfected answer. Like, you don't need a really polished, really perfected answer. And it's not necessarily about, like, yeah, like you say, I have all the answers and I'm going to deliver them in the most perfect, most professional, most polished way. And actually, I think, for some people, we spoke about, progress over perfection, didn't we? It's like, actually, sometimes you just need to allow yourself to just say the thing, and not overthink it. And if you're sitting there overthinking it, thinking, how's it going to land? What words do I say? The moment's probably passed and you've missed the opportunity, and the topic of conversation has already changed. So I think just almost just allowing yourself to kind of contribute, even if you don't have the finished version as well.
Yes, I absolutely love that. Progress over perfection every time.
Yeah.
So just one final thought then around how else we can handle our introverted energy following that meeting. So you've prepared well for the meeting, you've had some pre-meets, we've then done the really insightful questions, connected the dots, done the observations. What about after the meeting's ended?
Well, this is where I think a lot of the gold sits, actually. It's like, actually, you've probably been in that room, with a mix of people, but a lot of those people, they're racing off to the next meeting. They've already forgotten about this meeting. Like, so many people don't really follow up. Many people, they don't do the actions. They don't, it's like, we've all been in them throughout our career, the meetings for meeting's sake, and all this stuff gets said and it doesn't get done. And then you go to the next one. It's like, surely, like, we're talking about the same stuff that we've spoken about before. So I just think, like, there is such a great opportunity to follow up, because firstly, many people don't follow up, and that's probably, as someone who wants to take their time to reflect and to think, you've had the space to do that and almost like think about, like, actually, what is my view? What did I hear in that room? What is my opinion? What do I think we can do? And so I think actually following up can, I think, I think it can make a real difference, both individually, potentially, and I think that follow up, it could be like, here's my view, or it could be, oh, I really love what you said in that meeting, or I've been thinking more about what you brought up. And, like, there's so many different ways you can follow up, either individually or collectively. And again, it might be that the method of following up might feel a bit more comfortable. You're not in the room with the people. Maybe it's email, maybe it's, it's a phone call to someone, like, but you're doing it in a way that it just feels a bit more natural.
Absolutely. And I think as well, given that introverted characters do need time to process their thoughts, the follow-up, like you say, is absolute gold. So to be able to then help somebody feel recognized after that meeting, like that example you just gave about, just thought about what you just said, or you mentioned this, I've actually found a resource, or here's how I could help. And it is so powerful to follow up, because like you say, we all live at this million miles an hour life sometimes, particularly when you're back-to-back meetings. So it's incredibly powerful.
So that was a whistle-stop tour of kind of how to approach, I guess, senior meetings in procurement, if you're kind of probably more introverted. We mentioned at the beginning that we are hosting our first ever online workshop, actually, and we're really excited to be able to, I guess, provide a more interactive experience for you. So, we've got lots of really loyal listeners and watchers. What do you call the people that watch a podcast? Listeners and people tuning in. Viewers, that's it. Watchers. That doesn't sound right at all. We do have, a really loyal group of people that kind of tune in, but we want to give you a more interactive experience. And so on the 15th of July, which is also our 1-year anniversary for Procurement Pivots, we are going to be hosting our first online workshop. It is going to be targeted for procurement leaders and more senior procurement professionals, and really focused on, you know, some growth opportunities within your career. So we're really excited. We will share details in the notes for this episode, and from today you will see us on the Procurement Pivots podcast talking in a bit more detail about what it's all about. But we'd love for you to join us. We'd love for you to start to meet some of the other people as well that are tuning in, because we know we've got a lot of real kind of growth-minded, driven, you know, procurement professionals that are tuning in, and I think there's lots of opportunities to kind of grow and share together.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to see you there. So yeah, take a look at the link in the show notes and also on the Procurement Pivots page on LinkedIn.
Yeah. All right. Well, good to see you as always, Laura.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
And thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you later. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Procurement Pivots. We hope today's episode gave you actionable tips to help you to continue to move forward in your procurement career.
If you enjoyed the conversation, follow our episodes, share them with others, and please support us on our social media channels for others that might be interested to tune in.